Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about episode 1 of the new Amazon Prime series, Them. It premiered today and everyone's anticipating it and buzzing about it because it's a little bit reminiscent of maybe some Jordan Peele productions, but just in general, it's yet another perspective of racism to Black families, specifically in the Jim Crow era. So I'm really excited about this series because I love the element of horror in there. Even though we have been blasted over the last 10 years with, tropes of racism in television and film, this is yet another one, but it's another perspective. So I'm giving it a fair shot, and I would love to see what the production and the director of Them does to show us racism and horror in the 1950s with a Black family. So I will be covering episode 1 in this video, and I will be doing the entire series on this channel, so make sure you subscribe and stay tuned. So without further ado, let's get into it. The setting is 1953, and we have a family. We have a female protagonist, Lucky Emery. We have her husband, Henry Emery. And we have their 2 children, 2 daughters, Ruby and Gracie Jean Emery. And they are migrating from Chatham, North Carolina, the racist Jim Crow South, to California in hopes of a better life. Still a racist life, right? They're, very well aware of racism all over the United States, but for a better life and better job opportunities for the entire family. So the show has so much going on, right? And so when I was watching episode 1 and episode 2, I realized that there are just so many different points that we have to follow that eventually are all going to come together. So in order to do these reviews, I realized that we have to follow 3 specific plot points. Of course, the most obvious is the racism, right? That's the premise of the entire show. Specifically, the racism in the 1950s, in the Jim Crow South or the Jim Crow era, and how it affects the Emery family. Then we're going to follow the presence of the Emery house. There's some type of supernatural presence that also intertwines into the 3rd plot point, which is potentially Lucky's sickness, or what's going on with Lucky and Gracie Jean. So there's some type of connection there that we see with some type of supernatural presence in the house, and of course the racism. So if we follow those 2 or 3 plot points, we'll be able to fully go through the entire show. So let's get started on the racism in this show. As we said, the Emery family is migrating from the South to the West for better opportunities for jobs. Henry, we learned, is an engineer, so he's going to be working in that industry. And just in general, he wants to create a better life for his family. And like we said, racism exists everywhere, but they have hopes that they'll be able to live a more peaceful life in the West. So they moved from Chatham, North Carolina to Compton, and it's just so interesting seeing that setting, right? Because what we know of Compton right now is a little more inner city, a little more heavily Black populated. And back in the 1950s, as we saw, when we walked into or we drove into Compton, it was super lily white. It was manicured lawns. Every house looked the same. These Stepford wives, these trophy white wives that are outside watering their grass and walking their dogs. It's not what we're used to seeing. To continue in the racism plot, we see that the house that's being sold to the Emerys, on the deed it says, no sale to Negro blood. We see already how the neighbors are treating them. They're watching them like zoo animals and already plotting on their downfall. We have a female antagonist, her name is Betty, who is going to be the ringleader in all of this to try to bring the Emerys down and make them leave the house by any means necessary. They alluded to having done it before, so we see that in the whole racism plot of this show. Also, we have Henry, who's an engineer, and on his first day of work, he goes to the woman so politely and respectfully, as we are, and the woman faces him with complete disrespect and rudeness and assumes that he's a cook or potential cleaner in the kitchen, even though he's an engineer, and wouldn't give him the time of day. He meets another Black person that helps him around, and I learned a new word, Ofe, which is an offensive term for white people that they used back then, which is Pig Latin for foe. So they called white people foes, and so that kind of sets a tone already in the show in general, and kind of shows us another perspective of racism. I've never even heard that word before, so that was really interesting to see. The next 2 plot points, Lucky's potential sickness, and supernatural connection. Also Gracie Jean's potential sickness and supernatural connection with the house and that supernatural presence. So the first thing we see is Sergeant, the dog, running to the basement door. So that foreshadows that there's something going on in that house. Usually in shows, we have pets that have like another sense that sometimes humans don't have. And so we see that the dog leads us to this basement door, that he senses something that the humans haven't sensed yet. So to follow along with this plot, we have Gracie Jean, who has this book that says Miss Vera Says on the front cover. We learn that she's not in school like her older sister Ruby, and that she kind of teaches herself, teaches herself lessons on this book. So we have to pay attention to these details, because we learn that Miss Vera is a presence in the house. She's this tall, dark, shadowy figure that summons Gracie Jean, and Gracie is not scared. When I saw Miss Vera, which I didn't know it was Miss Vera at the time, I was super scared, but Gracie wasn't, and I'm just like, does she know who this is? Or does she have something going on with her that doesn't cause her fear? But we see that she gets attacked by this shadowy figure, and it leaves some type of laceration on her neck, which is discovered by her mother later on. Also, Gracie sings this really eerie song that we see was the same song that was in Lucky's dream in the opening scene of this episode. And Lucky has this big freak out moment where she's like, where did you learn that song? Don't sing that song. And Gracie Jean asks her a question along the lines of like, you're not crazy anymore, right, Mama? Or, you're not sick anymore, right, Mama? Which kind of alluded to me that there's something going on with Lucky that the entire family knows about. So that's why I'm making those connections. And so we have to see what is going on with Lucky specifically, what's going on with Gracie Jean specifically, and who is this Miss Vera and what connection does she have to the house and the family. There's also a box of things that Lucky puts in the basement, the same basement with this creepy presence. So we're trying to tie everything together. Again, it's only episode 1, but they're definitely setting this scene for different things that are going to come up throughout this series. So I'm really excited to see how this is all going to come together. So to close out this episode, Lucky finds that there's a laceration on Gracie's neck and that the dog is missing. And they find the dog is dead. We think about when both Betty and the women of the neighborhood and her husband and the men of the neighborhood plot against the Emery family to get them out. And the men say that they're going to first bleach a bone for the dog to have and poison him and kill him. And then we find the dog dead in the basement. And I thought it was really interesting to see Lucky both out of that house and kind of threaten everyone with a gun, saying, leave my family alone, because she looks absolutely crazy, even though she has a reason to. And I just thought that was so interesting that they see us, right, lash out because of our treatment, but to the outside world, we're just lashing out for no reason. That was a really good thing that they included at the end of this episode, because it just made us, it made me feel like, like she probably looks super crazy to everyone, but she has a reason. And many, many Black people feel that way, look that way when we're chanting in the streets and when we're rioting and when we're looting and protesting and yelling to the skies. We all look crazy, we all look super angry, but they don't realize that this is just a symptom of the problem. This is a response to the action that we received. So I love that they included that scene to close out the episode, and then the next episode starts with what the aftermath of that is. So that closes out episode 1 review. We're gonna get into episode 2 review in the next video, so make sure you guys tune in. Also, don't forget to comment below, how did you feel about the episode? How did you feel about the perspectives that I reviewed? Did you guys see anything else that I might have missed? And make sure you tune in for episode 2. See you soon.